Awesome. Hi. Okay. Welcome everyone to
Hello.
another week of strategy solutions and sanity. Today, this guest, I've been waiting to have this guest on. I'm so excited for Miss Jennifer Lacey. Hi, hello. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for the
So,
invite.
so Jen, I started stalking you through the cyber world of Jesse. And then, as
Mhm.
you like to call it, we collided in
Yes.
Sedona. And we had
Mhm.
very brief, it was like just such a go, go, go weekend. We kind of had a
Mhm.
brief conversation Sunday at brunch. And I was like, give me the 2-minute download of your spiritual journey in your life. Go. And you had to run to
Yes.
the airport, right? And
Mhm.
so I but in those brief interactions was just this moment of like, holy cow, this woman is all kinds of amazing. So I'd love for you to give us a little longer than 2 minutes, which is okay. Debrief,
Mhm.
give us some insight, let us into the world of Jen on like how you got to where you are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to try to do this. It's been a very windy road. So, one, Jennifer Lacey. I work with Robbins and Morton, who's a healthcare general contractor. That's like my day job. And then I also do a lot of stuff on the side, currently co-chairing with Keon for LCI Congress. Jesse and I do a biweekly live stream with No BS with Jen and Jess. Co-wrote Lean in Love with Jesse. So like there's a lot of side projects that
Yeah.
I guess because I don't have enough going on. But how did I get to
More.
where I'm at? So I've been with, I know, right? I've been with Robbins Morton for 22 years in construction. And prior to that, I was a teacher and a coach. And so with no construction background. So that's kind
Okay.
of a lot of some of the stuff we're going to talk about today on just coming into an industry that I I saw like, okay, I think I can do this, and then navigating along the way on where my place is and how can I bring value and how can I serve the people that are here, without that very technical side that maybe a lot of people come into construction thinking about. And for me, it's easy.
Yeah.
There are people and there are processes. And usually people fall in one of the two buckets, and I am this bridge in between. And so I understand some of the technical, but I understand the people part a lot. And so, how do we bridge that to make sure that we are, again, caring for the human beings that are out there doing the work? And again,
Mm.
very aligned with a lot of the stuff Jesse does, but for me, it's just the core component of if we care about people and we respect people and we value them, then they're going to do the best work they can, and we are going to help them prolong their life and be able to find their
Mm.
purpose. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I loved it. It was, but there's a few things I really want to dive into deeper into on that. But what's interesting is, when we talk about like, oh, let's just care and respect people, and it sounds so simple, right? Of like, oh, like just be a decent human in business. Is that what you mean? It's like, well, no, that's actually really hard sometimes because you have all these other factors influencing you. But I want to go back to you used to be a teacher. And I've realized a lot of people in my network that I gravitate toward have a background in teaching or have just that kind of persona. So first, like, what did you teach? And then like, how have elements of being a good teacher, has that kind of influenced your work now?
Absolutely. So I was a teacher, so I taught computer science and English. Like just, because
Okay.
I think when I went in to get my teaching certification, I played sports in college. I was an
Okay.
athlete. I knew the coaches that taught me and kind of how people thought about them because they were
Hmm.
doing health or they were doing PE. And so my whole mentality was, if I'm going to coach, I need to have a legit, like, I need to be teaching something where they know that I got some brains along with the skill of coaching. And so I was
Yeah.
like, let's just do English. Like that sounds fun. And so I taught English and computer science, and then
Okay.
golly, the elements of teaching high school and junior high compared to now what I do, like, oh, well, how many things can there be that are aligned? So number one is
Mm.
if you can get up in front of junior high and high school kids and help them understand the value of what you're trying to teach them, but also be able to learn, the ins and outs and the different types of learning and how to get people engaged. If you can
Hmm.
do it in that setting, I feel like, yes, adults sometimes, are just bigger kids. But also, if
Mhm.
you know how to tap into things that are important to people, but also why people are disengaged. I mean, I feel like I got like a just fire hose, and in the
Mm.
time I was there to go. Now I have all these skills that I can walk into any room and go, okay, I see what's happening here. Let me navigate around this so that we can make sure that we are aligned in the end.
Yeah. Oh, you know what you're pulling up for me? So we have a
Oh,
wonderful, like, just like neighborhood Starbucks across the street. When the school year
mhm,
hits, every day between 2:30 to 3:30, middle school and high school kids run this coffee shop. And that's usually the time
mhm.
where I'm like, I need a little afternoon pick me up, right? But every time I'm like, do I want to brave standing and waiting for my coffee in front of these like 12 to 16-year-olds? Because they just like, and they might not even be talking about you, but their general presence just
Mhm.
feels like the teenage
It's
judgment, right? And
scary.
so,
It's
yes,
scary. And then
like,
you're the person
oh,
up there that, and at that age, it's a little different. One, I have a 14 and 16-year-old, so I can go
mhm,
down every avenue right now that we're talking about. But it's also in that setting, you're not just dealing with that individual sitting in your room. They are still under the
mhm.
care of their parents. So
Yes.
there's all these elements of things that you're having to like navigate, but also know that you are helping them become like these humans that they're going to be out in the world living and learning. And so what can you take from them, but also what can you give them, even if they're fighting you? And like, how
Mhm.
does that associate to construction? All of it.
Yes. Well, also, I would imagine, and not just imagine, I know because I've also done like some process stuff. There's when it comes to balancing people and process, there's a great amount of that's like kind of therapeutic, right? Like, oh, well, why
Mhm,
did you avoid this conflict, or why are you approaching this process this way, right? And there's a lot of
mhm,
that childhood and parental influence for people that then dictates how they manage and show up in the workplace. And so it's
mhm.
very similar elements. And so sometimes I feel bad drawing so many connections between managing a team and parenting kids. And I'm like, it's pretty similar.
It
Like,
is.
ah.
Mhm. Because you have to
Okay,
let
so
them fail, but you want to guide them and you want to give them boundaries, but you also have to hold them accountable. Like all the things that as a parent, it's your job, but you also have to like back off and let some things go
mhm.
wrong.
I'm not ready. I mean, my kids are 5 and 3, so I'm not ready for all the things that can go wrong. Although today I did, my mom always tells me embrace the mess. And I did. We were doing like watercolor painting before going to the nannies, and they wanted to paint their faces. And I'm like, you know what? It's washable. Just go for it. Be a boy, be messy. And so it's just like green paint that's now become black because it's all the colors. And I'm like, it's totally fine, Sam. Just breathe through this. But I know I cut you off when I was cringing about the judgment of teenagers. So there were other
Mhm.
elements that you were going to dive into of teaching to now
Mhm.
coaching.
Mhm. So I think the biggest thing, and even now, one of the things I realized is, and I don't think I knew it when I was teaching. I think in teaching, you're like thinking about you're checking all the boxes, you're making sure you got your all the things you need to do, plus making sure that you're engaging and connecting with the
Mm-hmm.
humans that are in front of you. I didn't realize till after I got into construction that facilitation is a superpower.
Oh,
And
mm-hmm.
when you're in that setting, and it's what teachers do, and the
Mm-hmm.
good teachers are really good facilitators. And so when you translate that, or when I translated that over into construction, being able to be in a room and engage and help people connect, but also like pull information out and get them to understand the how to integrate with each other, like all of those components in construction are where high performing teams start and begin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they grow and get better, is because of how they integrate together.
And I would go a step further on like facilitation being a superpower because there's some mini powers in that, right? Which really,
Yes.
really dive into can you, in a quick time, build trust and encourage vulnerability so people can get to the conversations that they need to if you're doing like a little mini working session, right? Or even like
Yep.
just a 1 or 2 day project session dissecting a process. And you have to be able to get through kind of, I guess, the 5 stages of like a team being formed, right? You have to be able to get through all of that really quickly.
Yep.
And I can so see that being your superpower because you have such a energetic grace about you is how I would describe
Thank
that.
you.
Of yeah, you can very easily be like, okay, this is what this person needs, but I can still present in a way that resonates with this person. And I think that's an amazing superpower. And if someone doesn't know how to do that, just follow Jen, just stalk her and be like, can I be more like Jen? Okay.
Sometimes you have to do it covertly. Sometimes you have to do it without them knowing you're doing it because
Mhm.
they are disengaged and they are like, I am here because I have to be here and I don't want, you can tell they're coming in and they already have all these defenses up and they have all this armor
Yeah.
up. And our job is one to get our point across and get our content
Mhm.
across and to help check the box or bring the value that you were in the room for. But the
Mm.
other is that like other people got asked to be in this room or got told to be in the room, whatever it is. And like, how can they walk away and go, okay, this was worth my time? Or,
Yeah.
okay, I got value from this. Like, sometimes we forget those pieces. We just go, I
Mhm.
have content I have to deliver. My job is to deliver the content. Here's the presentation, and I've done my job. And then it's their job to leave and go and figure out how to make it work. And I feel like
Mm.
that's not the right approach all the time because, like, if we didn't help them understand the why, then we're a little bit at fault.
Well, that also what I'm hearing there is it's not just like, hey, understanding the why is an element of delivering your content well. It's instead saying like, no, your objective is not to deliver content. Your objective is to engage and have them learn value. And so I'd be interested to know if there were any of those like very standoffish people that then now do they, because you've been at Robbins and Morton's for 20, 22 years. So,
Mhm.
do you have some of those people that started off standoffish that are now like calling you up, like, give me ideas, or like, I need suggestions on this, and are like totally open to it all now?
Yeah, so I know like part of it was like what are some things that were like drove you crazy? Like that was kind of that's part of the content here. So I had a
Yeah.
couple that I wrote down just to kind of go, these are things I
Mm,
remember early on. I mean, I've been with them for 22 years. I've been leading Building Forward, which is our internal kind of approach to collaboration, learning, continuous
mhm,
improvement, leadership, like all the things that matter that have to do with our culture. Like that's what I lead, and I've been leading that for about 6 years, but been a part of it for about 10. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of subjective, maybe things that you can't quite measure or touch when it comes to those you
mhm,
know specific items. And so I thought, like, what were the things early on that a little bit drove me crazy, but also what are things that maybe I internalized and made things crazier than they needed to be. And so
mm,
those are the things right now I think that I would love to share because I know that they helped me grow for sure. So the first one was I'm going to say imposter syndrome. Like people say that, but I know coming in, not having the construction degree, not having been out in the field, like it was a huge thing that I was carrying and making myself be less than
mm,
because if I was engaging with someone and I had a goal or I had content or I had things I needed to do, I self-inflicted myself, I guess to myself that my words didn't carry as much weight because I wasn't out there building something. And
mm.
so, and I was applying that to myself and making myself like, okay, well, then I don't need to push back or I don't need to ask another question or I don't need to, to doubt or make someone say, hey, okay, wait a minute, think about this. Like I was doing that to myself.
So
And so
let's, I mean,
there's that piece. Yeah.
let me
Go.
dissect that a little bit because, I mean, we're talking like toward the early parts of your career, right? So
Mhm.
are you saying that this was mostly just an internal feeling and there wasn't a lot of external factors of like very stereotypical big burly field construction guys like not paying attention to you? Like were there external factors that then you had to navigate, okay, in addition to my insecurities, I need to also show up in this way? Or was it really just all internal for you?
I would say a majority of it was internal. So I'd say
Okay.
80% of it was myself because
Mhm.
I was surrounded by people that saw value in me before I saw value in me and just
Mm.
and really and had good conversations and they listened to my ideas. And so again, worked with surrounded by people in a firm that really valued what I said. But my lens kept me from being able to maximize that value, because I would be in rooms and I would almost like wait, or like if someone said, okay, I don't have that, what I'm going to say is probably not, like I second guessed a lot of things that
Mm.
I'm not going to say held me back from what I could do. It almost like I had to navigate through that to then be able to go, well, they value me. That's why they're asking, or they
Mm.
value me. That's why I'm in the room. And I had to kind of navigate through that to then go, okay, like, and it took a while. I mean, Jesse helped with a lot of that too, but it was a balance. Some of it, yes, like, okay, what does she know? And things like that. And that's fine, because everybody has their thing that they're really good at. And
Mm.
if mine's not the same as yours, that's okay. In fact, that's even better. And so it doesn't have to be, if you're real good with the technical, hands-on tactical stuff, let me be the person that's kind of helping with the people stuff. Like, that's great. And once I realized that that's how we maximize teams. Oh, sorry. The room went off. That's how we maximize teams, is by being able to, to lean on strengths, but also
Mhm.
like compensate for others' weaknesses and things like that.
So what I heard there as well, because I think sometimes for people, we can go from the problem of imposter syndrome to then say like, okay, I had to navigate this and here's where I'm at now. And that could still kind of feel up in the clouds for some people. So if we were to bring that
Right.
down at the tactical side of it, there's obviously some internal work that happened. There was some external kind of peer mentorship that happened, it sounds
Mhm.
like, with Jesse.
Yep.
Really kind of, if we again looking at the tactical, what was the way
Mhm.
that you navigated this and evolved to, my voice doesn't matter here, to, yeah, no, I've got these superpowers, I can help you even if you know more about XYZ.
So I guess the first one was, I guess there's two things. They kind of go hand in hand. So one's not more important than the other. So the biggest tactical things was, number one is I created my own personal advisory board. And so
Okay.
what that means is, there was a point where, because I was touching a lot of people, there were people that I was like, oh, I could just sit with them and talk forever. And then there are people that were like giving me really constructive, really honest feedback. There were people that I was interacting with, and there were other people that I could go, they don't really know what I do, or other people that were maybe challenged, or because of me, or things like that. And so I like started watching people and who did reach out to me and ask for information, but also people that really wanted to help me grow and do better. And then I started like really being intentional with that group of people. Very, not a huge group, like 5 people or less than 5.
Mhm.
Who are those people that I talk to the most? So
Mhm.
those are the people. I may not talk to them every day, and it may not be somebody that I get a lot of time with, but they are the people that, if I look at 80% of my communication, 75% of my communication happen with these people because of different things that we're doing. It absolutely, it doesn't say put me in a bubble, but it allowed me to see what was in front of me versus what my mind was telling me was in front of me.
You can really
So there's
look
that.
at it from that outsider's perspective. Now, did
Yes.
they
And
did they know that they were on your board, or was it just
no,
kind
they
of
didn't.
subtle?
Early
Sneaky
on,
Jen.
they didn't know. Yeah, early on, they didn't know. But it was, again, because of the interaction and engagement. Some of them I've been friends with for 10, 15 years. And now when we talk, like, they're just like, I don't know why when I'm on the phone with you, like, where my mind goes and my ideas and where the things that we can figure out on a phone call for 15 minutes. Like, I just sat in a 2-hour meeting and like I was about to beat my head on the wall. But I get on the phone with you, and then we're just, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then we go. Those are the people that I surround myself with.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I think there's also, it's not just like that, okay, hey, this person, I can trust them with like being a little bit messy, but it's, I like, once you've developed that relationship, there's this subconscious element of like, your brain just automatically kicks into a different gear with them,
Yes.
which is super cool.
Yep.
Now, okay, let me go back to, you said really where your insanity happened was making things harder for yourself. It was, and it sounded like there was maybe a little bit more than just the imposter
There
syndrome that
is.
was
Yes.
happening there. Yeah. Okay. So give us a little bit more
So I
insight
think
of like,
Yes, I will. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I apologize
It's
that.
all good.
Because my brain's working way faster than my mouth right now.
Ah.
So again, the things that I guess the big one that early on, because of what I do, because of my role, is like resistance to change. Like it drives me crazy when people go, like, we've always done it this way, or that's not going to work, or like just things like they're just resistant to, I just don't want to do something different than what I've always done because this has worked. Like
Mhm.
that, like someone with that thought process or bringing that up in front of me early on drove me crazy because I'm like, they're just in a different bucket than these people. And so, and like, that's where I was. And it was, and it took some time and learning some very important skills to realize that they're not resisting me.
Oh, so
Like,
it wasn't that you weren't frustrated that like this is going to take longer than it should. You were frustrated because it felt personal.
yes, very personal. Like they're fighting me. And
Mm,
again, I'm in a role working for a company. So I represent a lot of things that the company is doing, changing, growing, evolving, like all the things within a company. And they were resisting that. So they were resisting me, which means I'm not doing my job or I need to do something better. Or, like all of it was personal. And I think we do that so much in our roles that like people are like there it's a personal resistance, it's a personal
mhm.
attack, and we don't like stop and take a step back and go, they're not resisting me, they're resisting the change.
Yes, and Maria's chiming in here with like, yes, they are not resisting you. It's such an important mindset shift. Thank you, Maria, for chiming in there. So then how did you get out of that? Was that similar, like leading on your peer advisory board, or
That's
you
part of
said it
it.
took a while? Okay.
No, that's part of it. So part of it was, I think the advisory board, I think, is a good kind of like mirrors, where they're mirrors to
Mhm,
kind of help you. Okay, let me self reflect, but also let me see what they see. So that's
mhm,
part of it. The other part, and Jesse helped me with this tremendously, is I had to get really good at asking curious questions. And I'm going to give you a little more detail as to what that means, because we all go, yeah, I know how to ask questions. I can be in a room and I can, no, 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 no. You need to ask curious questions, because if they're curious questions, there's a couple of factors that go into those type of questions that make them different. Number one, to be curious, I can't already know the answer. And that's scary because most people, when they ask a question, already know what the answer should be. And
yeah.
so if I'm going to ask a curious questions, I don't know what they might say. And that could
Mhm,
change the trajectory of the conversation. It could change my mind and how I think about something. So, like, to be open to ask a curious question, an open-ended, something that I may not, I know that I don't know what they're going to say, is very unscripted. And people sometimes get scary with unscripted. They get real scared of like,
mhm.
but what happens if they say something and it's not what I had planned? It's not on the agenda. I don't know the answer. Like, what happens? And like, to lean into that and to be okay with that is how I bridged that gap of resistance. Is because if I went in and went my way, this is what we need to do, I got to get them there,
Mhm.
then it's going to be a fight. We're going to fight because they don't want to go. So I'm going to like pull them. I'm going to do everything I can to get them there, and we're going to fight along the way. We're going to be, we're not going to find alignment. And
Mm,
so by asking questions, a very simple one. I was going into a meeting at a job site.
mhm,
Whole team was going to be there. Maybe a couple of teams were going to be in a room, and we were going to talk about some training and some stuff that falls under my umbrella, things that I lead.
mhm.
And I was going in, and one of the leaders said, "Hey, just FYI, so and so is going to be in the room, and they do not believe in this. They do not believe this is the right way to do this. The what you're going to go in there to talk to them about." I was like, "Okay, that's great to know." He's like, "So just be aware, be prepared. Just let me know." What I was like, "It's going to be fine. It'll be fine." So we go in, we start the training, we're going through, and I can see the skepticism, I can see the things that are there, and we're talking through kind of some steps of some things, and he's kind of, not disengaged. He's very engaged because he's very much knowing this is not right. And so I stopped and I said, "Hey, so and so." I was like, can you walk me through your process?"
Mm.
And he stopped And, based on what I had done so far, and he says, well, here's what I do different. And I said, okay. So he gets up and he walks through what he does and why he does it. And
Mhm.
it was something so small as in construction, noting, visibly those milestone, those very important dates or those items that like you can't move them on a schedule. Like they're very important. And we didn't really have a place to note, is this a milestone item or is it not? And so for him, it was like everything's not equal. Like everything on this board is not equal. There's some things that like are very important. And if this starts to slip, it could slip the schedule, all this stuff. And he's going and going and going. He's like, so what I did for my job is I put a column on my board for if it's a milestone item, and we note that when we put it on the board. And I said, that's an amazing way to do this. And it's a great way to make this better. Do you think I had him for the rest of the class?
He was in it. He was like, "Oh, someone's gonna listen to my
I mean, but like
ideas."
it was simple. It was I didn't know
Yeah.
the answer. I didn't even know what he was going to say. He could have just said this is
Mhm.
BS. Like
Mhm.
it could but I ask a question not knowing the answer. And that is scary, but it also is what opens people up because then you're ready for the next question or you're going this or whatever. And so again, that's what I've realized is that's how I can help people is by learning and still learning because I still am trying to figure some of this stuff out, how to ask curious questions going in, not already knowing what the answer needs to be.
And being comfortable that things are going to shift or they might
Yes.
shift, right?
Yes.
And what I'm also hearing there to kind of connect some dots here, because we started with superpowers, and there is a place for people that are resistant to change. If you have an entire team that are early adopters and they're like, anytime there's change, like, yeah, let's do it, like they just dive right in. Like, we need those people to energize the rest of the team.
Mm,
But there's also a place for people that are resistant to change because sometimes, like
yeah.
your example there, there's a why and there's something important. And so when I encounter that, I'm like, okay, I'm missing something. I'm missing something important that the we need to find that puzzle piece that then completes the picture. And this person doesn't realize that they can share that, or like that might be important,
Yes.
right? And so that goes back to Jen's superpowers, a facilitator. She's going to draw that out of someone, whether they like it or not. We're going to sit and we're going to listen to it. Now, on that note, like that's kind of bringing me back to you are this bridge between process and people. And I like that metaphor of a bridge because usually I describe it as a pendulum. Like either people heavily swing between like, oh, I focused too much on people, that didn't work. Now I focus too much on process, that didn't work. And so we have to find that balance. But I've never fully liked that analogy because the balance in a pendulum is not in motion, right? Versus a
Mhm.
bridge, we got to go back and forth, right? You've got to connect those. So, okay, let me. Uh, there's so many things here. There's
I
so
know
many
that's
little
okay.
tidbits of wisdom. I'm like, usually if I connect the dots, I've got something really quickly lined up. But I guess also I'd be curious to know if this person, like, okay, now they're engaged in the rest of this workshop, they're with you, they're like, okay, how can we make things better? Are they one of those people now that they're less resistant to change and they've kind of become this maybe earlier adopter on stuff? Or is that still their superpower of questioning all the whys?
It's definitely still their superpower. What I think
Mm,
it did is it opened their mind. They may not jump head first into all the things, but
mm,
they're supporting it for the people that do. So people that are
mm,
around them, they're like, hey, I want to do this, or I want to lead this, or I want to, whatever. Where before it may have been a resistant, no, we're not doing that.
mhm.
It's like I'll support you to do that. So again, very tenured, very experienced in construction. I think sometimes we don't value that they have been doing something for a very long time and been successful. People do
Yeah.
things and then we come in and go, there's a better way. And they're like, but I've been doing everything, like everything's worked. And I think that
Mhm.
when we address change like that, we get the resistance for, and it's on purpose and there's a reason for it, is because we're not valuing every brick and every stone and every pain point and every fail that's happened to get them to that point.
So how would like, if we bring this back into like a business owner, entrepreneur's mind, right? Or first we're saying like, hey, any resistance to change might not be personal, and even more so for a business owner, right? Everything is, I think, on a whole other level of like emotional sensitivity. So then kind of looking at that, how do they then appreciate the value of maybe more senior people? Like, hey, you've brought someone in that maybe has more experience in this industry. They're maybe a little bit older than you. How do they then strike that balance with someone like that?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. Number one is you have to really understand. I just had a conversation about this recently. Is you have to understand intent. And so,
Mm,
number one, how you're communicating intent, and then what are you trying to accomplish? And I think the other is you have to give space for people to try things. And so it's one, making sure they understand what the intent is. Here's where we want to go. Here's what
mhm,
we're trying to accomplish without prescribing it. And
mhm,
then letting them work in this space, a little messy, a little bit, may have to take some steps back to go forward, but letting people work in that space to then try something new or to see if something will work that could get them there in a different way. And so
mhm.
I think sometimes we think we're doing it, but then we're asking them why they're not doing something else. And so I think being able to create the space for messy, but then
Yeah.
also trust, because I think a lot of it goes back to the trust that you said. Like, I don't think we do it. I know we don't do it on purpose. And so, but it's like we trust these people enough to we hired them. We put them in positions of power. We put
Mhm.
them in positions to lead other people. We put them in positions to make very big decisions, yet we don't trust them to do some other things that could make things better.
Mhm. Oh, is that I
And
think
I
it's like
just
what is it like a, I'm gonna forget what, like, Fortune 100 CEO said that his quote of, like, "The stupidest thing you could do is hire smart people and then tell them what to do," right? Like, let
yes,
them go do the thing, right?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
it's bringing up, like, with my 5-year-old, there are times where I'm like, "Why are you getting another marshmallow?" Like, "I didn't say you could get another marshmallow." He's like, "I'm getting it for my brother." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Be a good brother. You go do that thing, right? But it goes
Yes.
back to I love what you said, and I don't want to brush over it of like we think we're communicating, but maybe we really haven't. And something as simple as saying like, "Well, I want to make this better." Is not clear communication, right? And some business owners and some managers don't realize that. Like, what is better? What is that intention? Like, are we on the same
Mhm.
page of like what the goal even looks like or what it means to be better? And let's clarify that, and then we can open the room up for some healthy conflict, right? So,
Yep, because
okay.
the leaders create that space. So that your
Mhm.
people are going to respond to how you give them direction, to how you guide them, to how you reprimand them. Like all the things, they're going to respond to that. So if I'm creating a collaborative environment and we're going to do better and we're going to do these things, and why are you not doing this? Like that is not going to foster the things that you want them to do. They have to believe,
Yeah.
like, hey, ask them questions. What do you think about this? What is, walk me through your process. Like all
Mhm.
those things are going to get them to go, oh, they want to hear what I have to say.
Yes. I mean, it's also like, oh, Maria's saying, yes, turning potential chastised opportunity into a curious question, which opens the space for communication. Yes, you have to create that space where people feel okay even like bringing up their idea, or like do they know that they can disagree with you if they have
Mhm.
something in a totally different direction. It's also just bringing to light a lot of ways I can parent my children differently, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, oh, maybe take a minute to chill out as the mom, and listen through.
Yes.
Now I know that you have a lot of some other moments of insanity, but something I wanted to make sure I got some clarity on. This is where my curiosity is driving. You have this beautiful, it seems beautiful definition of collision. And so when you meet people, you say that you collided, right? And I can even imagine in some of these circumstances, this person's really resistant to change. And you're like, oh, yeah, we collided. But for someone else, it'd be like, oh, like you were in that like very intense environment. But for you, it's like, no, this is like a really great, this is a positive thing. So, how did you redefine collision? Where did this come from? What does it mean for you, really?
Well, I think for me is another thing that is important to me, and it's things that I think everyone should do. Is I'm a people collector. Like I collect people, and I know that's kind of like, what does that mean? That means that I see value in everybody, every interaction. Doesn't matter where I'm at, what I'm doing. I'm smiling. I'm making sure that I'm having very intentional conversations because I have no idea where down the road that person is going to do something, be somewhere, and then I'll be able to reach out and connect them and things like that. So I'm very intentional when I do that. But when we think about collision, it's not like, Sam, you and I coming together and sitting at a table and I'm across from you, we're having a conversation. Like that's not a collision.
Hmm.
Collision in my mind is when once we've come together, our properties change.
Okay, we're
And
going
so
through a chemical reaction
that's
here.
yes. And so for me, when I engage with people, like when they leave, like they feel different. And when they see me again, whatever happened to them in that time with me, they're going to remember it, which in turn is going to help whatever we're supposed to do later. So that is why for me, the word collision is how I try to define my interaction with people is because more times than not, like it may be the blonde hair, it may be the tall girl, maybe the energy, like there's all the things, and it doesn't matter to me how they remember it, but they will remember their interaction with me.
That's interesting. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate a
Do
little
it.
bit on that.
Good.
Yes. So, because what part of what's coming up to mind for me is like, okay, like if we just approach with this giver mentality, right? And we approach with how can I go into a room and just shine a light and be the joy, all that, right? Which is awesome. But it can also be a little exhausting. Like I know for
Yes.
me, there was a time where I tried my best to approach it. And maybe it went into people pleasing, or maybe it was just a little bit inauthentic in some spaces. But it's like, wow, like people are getting way more out of this from my energy than like what I'm getting out of this. And it was like, okay, how do I then like have these healthy boundaries or kind of like protect myself in this space? So bring this down from the clouds for me because I'm like,
Okay.
okay, part of it is like, okay, I'm just going to go to a room and I'm going to smile all the time and I'm going to be that person. And then I'm going to go home exhausted and like, why did I do that? Right. So
Okay.
help me out.
I can do that. So what I've learned, um, I guess I learned it a while back, but the only thing I can control is me.
Mm,
I can't control what you do. I can't control what any other person does when they engage with me. And I'm telling you, there are people that engage with me that go, I don't want any more of that. Or you're a lot. Or I can only take so much. Like there's times where I'm on the phone with someone. They're like, Jennifer, okay, I've had it. This conversation is amazing. I can't do any more of this. And I'm like, no problem. We'll talk again next. Whatever it is, like I can only control me. So knowing that, hey, it's a short, quick conversation, ask a question, hey, we'll get back together later, or I can see eyes glazing over, or I can see where I'm making people super uncomfortable, and not in a facilitation role, but like where they're just like, they're starting to like, you can tell their fight or flight starting to come, like being aware of those things. Like I had to be, I had to understand that.
and how did you come to understand? Like, is this going back to teacher days and we've just got to have a good pulse on all the students and where they're at? Was it like being part of some of Jesse's like emotional intelligence stuff? Like, how did you really learn to be aware of those signs?
I think because I called him and complained so many times of things that were driving me crazy and that made me mad and that it's not fair and why would that person do that and like don't you agree with me that this is that they're being hateful or they're being jealous or whatever. I think so many of those conversations and the response back, it's just like, what can you control? What can
Mm-hmm.
you control? So if I go and I'm in a room like we were, and there's 20 people, 30 people, and I see value and I see all the things I can give, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I can show up exactly the way that I think I need to show up with no promises and knowing this going in, that any of those people will ever follow up and have a conversation with me ever again. If I can't show up with good intentions and hope and like energy and things like that, then I'm already preparing myself for failure.
Mm.
Versus if I go into this room and one person calls me afterwards and went, hey, can we do something? You know what? That's a win. And so, and then being able to, and it's funny because like I'm an introvert, but you never know that. But being in that room, I can show up and I can give everything, and then I'm done. Like I'm drained, which happens to me in every room I'm in. But then I go home and I can control what I do at home. I can control where my mind goes. I can control the space I give myself, the reflection that I think about. I can control those things. And so if I can do those things to replenish all my energy and stuff like that, then I am putting boundaries in place, but I'm controlling them. So I can go in a room and not feel neglected or not feel like, oh, I didn't provide the value I needed, or oh, so and so didn't agree with me. Like that's none of those things matter to me because they can choose what they want to do. I can't impose my will on someone else. So they get to make that choice on whether I'm a lot or hey, there's value here. And then I get to go on to the next person. And so that's where it goes to every person I interact with. I know there's value there. It just, I don't know if it's my value or theirs.
Okay. And so what I'm hearing there, if we're going to summarize that all, what I'm hearing there is like going back to what the definition of being a giver is. You can choose to show up with this amount of energy, even knowing that you're going to be kind of drained later. You can show up with
Yes,
this amount of
absolutely.
energy. Yeah. Because you're not going in it expecting any kind of return. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that I'm reminded of, I did this workshop earlier this summer. It was a room full of an accounting department. It was pretty much just finance. I'm like, okay, I know it's a room full of introverts. And I'm like, the one goal is just like, can one person have fun? I'm gonna do
Mhm.
like, so it was, we're starting off the day and I'm telling everyone like it's gonna get goofy. You're gonna feel
Yeah,
cheesy. Lean into it with me. And so I was like, how can I kind of embody like that cheesy kindergarten teacher and just
mhm.
get people on board with me? I was like, if just one person laughs or thinks it's funny and then learns one thing, that's a success for the day. And then
Yes.
the whole room was like, this is awesome. And I'm like, by the end of the day, like I won everybody over, but you have to start with like this, what's a simple small win that I can go into the day with, right?
Yeah. I have another story really quick, really
Yes.
quick. Another
Yes.
one that
I love it.
when I'm in a room and I'm facilitating, and again, it's not hard because I'm stickies and markers and we're up and we're doing a lot of stuff, most of the rooms that I facilitate. And so the room's pretty engaged. One individual over here, very not engaged. Very much was told to be in this room, was made to be in this room. That was apparent from the get-go. And
Mhm.
even as I was like facilitating, asking questions, ask him a question that's above my pay grade, like just you could tell he wasn't feeling it and understand. So at that point, those of you that have been in my rooms, you have witnessed this or you have experienced it. Those of you that haven't, this is a cheat code. So be aware is when you are facilitating and you have someone you can tell that is very disengaged for whatever reason.
Mhm.
My cheat code is that they will now be a part of every example I use for the rest of the class. So every time I was going to tell a story, or every time I was doing a hypothetical, I don't remember his name, but I will we'll call him Jason.
Okay.
Every time. Okay, so Jason is your leader, and he's on site, and they're all looking at Jason because Jason's sitting over here in the corner. And then this happens, and then he's got to make a decision on what. So every example, and then he's kind of engaged because now he's got his name involved, and now he's a part of it. Now he's part of the example, and I just start weaving him into all of the stuff that I'm already doing anyway. He just happens to be a part of it by me just engaging and pulling him in without him having to do anything. He doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to say he agrees or doesn't agree. I'm just now using that person. And if there's multiple, I'll use multiple
Mhm.
people. And
Mhm.
then his engagement got more. He got more engaged. He started responding. He's leaning forward. He's smiling. He's doing things like
Mm.
that. And then even throughout the rest of the class, what he was maybe resisting earlier, he was doing the things that I was asking him to do. He
Yeah.
left that class, which I was not expecting this. We left the class. It was like a 5 or 6 hour class. He left the class, walked out. I always talk to him when they're working out. He said, "Hey," he goes, "this was one of the best trainings I've ever attended." And he could have just been making me feel good, but I'm gonna tell you right now, like, that was a training class he did not want to be in. And so but it was, if he left there and all he remembers is if I have to do another training and Jennifer's facilitating it it probably won't be as bad as I would like. If it's even if it's just something so tiny like that, like
Mm.
that's my goal. That's all I'm trying to do. And what value did that bring to me? Like, I mean, I don't know, but
A
that's
lot
how I
of
have to show.
value. I mean, that's like it's filling your cup when you can get feedback like that. I
Yes.
mean, I never I one of the ways I try to like, lower my expectations, but not like in a settling way. In the giver
Mhm. Yeah.
mentality is just like, just don't expect feedback. Like if it's a neutral, cool. And then when all
Yeah.
the, oh, I loved this, when all that starts coming in, I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like I loved it
Yes.
too. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Right. And yeah, that's totally value for you. And that also then goes into the I'm not an imposter cup. I'm not an imposter.
Yep.
I have
Yep.
value,
Yep.
which it's so interesting to kind of hear that those were things that you struggled with. Because if someone were to do a little bit of cyber stalking and they're looking at your LinkedIn, you're involved in a lot of stuff, girl. Here's your
I
board
know.
member here, you're leading this. It's like you are not just working at a company facilitating these trainings
Nope.
and doing all your magical powers over there. You're just like touching and sprinkling magic in all these other areas, which to me then says Jen knows the power of her voice. She knows that like she can contribute value in these areas. And I would never guess that that was ever an issue for you. So how did
No.
you even decide like, I'm going to join this, I'm going to join this and all da, da, da.
Well, it goes back to what I said is like I didn't know the value of my voice.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesse and I talk about this, and I think this is important. And those that are listening, I think this is something that you need to hone into. I just had a conversation with someone last week using these words that when you
Mm-hmm.
are preparing to go in to do a podcast or you're going in to do a presentation or a training, like we get so caught up on the things we should be saying, the boxes we need to be checking, what the people in the room are going to think, and that they're going to judge us. Like these are all the things that live in our head. A lot of us, even if we've been doing things a while. I say all you need to focus on is your body of work. And I'm going to look at it in two different lenses. Number one, if you have experience and you have a body of work that doesn't have to be like magnificent, but
Mm-hmm.
your work that you've done, the things you've accomplished, you don't have to go and write a script for it. You're literally pulling that out of your brain and of your knowledge and of the things that are already in the library in your head. So you don't have to like overthink those things. And if you're trying to present or talk about something without a body of work, you shouldn't be.
Mm.
And so again, that doesn't mean like if it doesn't mean it's not an opportunity to learn because the people that have to teach, it's a learning opportunity. Because if you don't know it and you don't have the knowledge, and you want to get up and be a subject matter expert, and you want to be someone that they respect, like it's you need to know it. You don't need to try to prove to the audience that you know it. And I think we get caught up in that sometimes. And so for me, I was just talking about the things that I was doing and talking and learning as I was going and asking questions. And then there became a point to where people like Jesse go, Jennifer, like you're one of a very few group of people here that can do these things. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And then we started, and then other people like, so then it became, well, crap. Like, I don't think I realized that, but it was because I was just doing things. And then I was leaning on those things that I had done, those experiences, and talking about it and sharing it. And here's where I screwed up. And here's where I could have done better. And here's the things I've done here. And Jesse goes, not a lot of people have done that. And I'm like, what? He's like,
You talking
no.
about?
And so I think that's where it became, hey, Jennifer, can you be a part of this? Hey, we want your voice in the room. And I think that was the switch is when, the way I show up. Now people, because they are on social media, they get to see how I show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, the I don't know, it was the switch, but it was the turning point was when I realized how I show up and that if people invited me in rooms, that's what they were expecting.
Mm.
And like it was different because now if you're inviting me into a room to be a part of something, you already know how I'm going to show up. I don't need to
Yeah.
temper that. I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
be quiet. I don't have to like, ooh, like that's not how I show up. And
Mm-hmm.
so it also keeps me out of rooms. And I understand that too. And I respect that. But if I get invited somewhere, hey, we want your voice on here, or we want you to be a part of this, there's a reason they're asking.
You know, Megan Shapiro, who was our guest last week,
Yes.
she touched just on
I
that with,
love Megan. She's one of my
oh
most
my
favorite
gosh.
people.
She, again, like another like high energy person, and she has the whole idea of like people either love me or hate me, but she's embraced that now of like,
Mhm.
okay, like she's putting content out there, she is clearly showing, you know, how she delivers messages and
Yep.
what her personality is. And so now it's like, yeah, people are paying her to show up, they are like putting their stamp of approval on that energy, and that's how she's going to show up for you. And I also want to touch on some of the things that you're saying here
Okay.
and bring it back to like the business owner perspective, because I think sometimes it is really hard to understand your value and articulate that. And
Mhm.
that's because a lot of times your superpower is actually something that feels very common sense to you.
Yes.
And so you can look at it of like, oh, like this is easy. And it's those moments that you're like, doesn't everybody know this? Or doesn't
Yes.
everyone know these skills? It's like, hell no, people don't know that. Like that's your superpower. That's where you know, can contribute really awesome things for people. And it does take sometimes a multiple outside voices pointing something out for you to be like, oh shit, that's not so common, you know?
Still, I mean, still now, even as I'm leaning into it and I can own it, there's still times where I'm like, I mean, yeah, okay. Like it's still, I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm not one to dance up in the front and go, look at me, look at me. So it's when they're like, this is the person, I'm just like, I mean, okay, I can help.
Yeah, you're like, I guess, yeah, yeah, let's dive in. So, okay, let me break this down and kind of
Okay.
summarize where we're at, and then I'll tee you up because I know I so appreciate you. Like you did notes. That's the structure and Jen coming out. So I know
I
you've
mean,
got.
I had some words. Let's put it that way. I tried to not over script it.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's the evolution and the growth there. But
Yes.
if I can pull this down to like our key takeaways so far on the soft skill side, we've got, hey, be proud of your body of work. Like your voice matters. We've got going in with no expectations. That's going to help you whether you have to ask curious questions or whether you can just show up as a giver, right? That no expectations baseline. And then also just being aware of other people's body language and learning how to read people. We've got that in kind of our soft skills bucket. And then on our practical, tactical action item bucket, really the main thing I heard from you is that peer advisory. And that was a common thing of like, oh, how did you learn this? And you said, well, I just talked to people and I complained about it a lot. And then I realized XYZ, right? So that peer advisor and having people to vent to, talk through. You don't have to go hire a therapist, but maybe you've got a really good friend or colleague in this area. And those are what I'm hearing as like our strategies and our solutions here. Are there other tidbits where you're like, okay, piece of advice, like someone has to know this that you want to make sure we share with the audience today?
Yes, absolutely. So you've summarized most everything I have. So let me just make sure. I think is people don't like, I guess some things just to think about, and then I'll give it another cheat code that I try to use. So, like people don't wake up every day like I'm gonna go screw this up. They don't wake up every day and go, I
I
want
would
to go
argue
piss.
my toddler sometimes
I mean,
wakes
other
up
than
with
maybe
the
okay, other
idea
than maybe
of
my
like,
twins, right?
yeah,
But like outside of
yeah.
that, like people
Hmm.
want to do good. They want their work to matter. And
Hmm.
so like just like look at things through that lens when you see someone that is maybe reacting a different way, or they're having a hard day, things like that. Like they want to matter and they want their work to matter. So just like a lens to think about.
Hmm.
I think the other thing that we didn't so much touch on, we kind of skated on it a little bit, but is one of my cheat codes is just make it exist. You can make it better later.
Ah,
And it's
yes.
it's that people are in that perfection place. I mean, like we know those people because what I have learned, and I've done big things and I've done small things, and all of them started with one step. And that first step was always the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And once I made the first step of like just jumping in and doing it, all the other steps were easier and they came faster. But I had to take the first step. And that's where a lot of our we get worried and scared is just make it exist. Like just put it out there, make it exist. Make it could be a rough draft. It could be a chapter 1. It could be the first paragraph. It could be the first step of something. And then it's out there. People are talking, and you're getting feedback, and then your flywheel is just going faster because now your reps are happening, at a
Mhm.
rate that would never have happened if you didn't put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what makes Nike so amazing, right? Like, just do it. Just go do the thing. Just start it. Whether, like you said, it could be in any part of your life. If you're writing a
Mhm.
book or you're working out or even this,
Mhm.
like y'all, I have so appreciated doing lives the past few weeks. I have been told to do lives like since I started my business. Everyone's like, that's one of the things people tell me. And I'm like, no, we need recorded. We need like, here's the interview outline. If we mess up, it's recorded. So we could just bleep this out. It's fine. And so doing live reps, I'm just over
Mhm.
here. I'm really
It's real,
excited to be
man.
talking to Jen, but I'm scared out of my mind. I'm like, holy shit, what's my next question? How am I going to make this valuable for people? Oh my gosh. But when you take a step back, like, okay, I'm just going to go do it. And like, what's the worst that can happen? I flop live.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Like, maybe so no one likes the first chapter. Maybe they're like, this is a really boring thing. Cool, go make
Yes.
it better. Maybe you cold call someone and they're like, no, I don't want it. Cool. Now you know that they're not a customer for you. Like, just go start and do the thing. I think that's an amazing takeaway.
Yep.
But
Just
also,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was gonna
No, no,
say,
no. No.
is that also still kind of hard for you? Is that one of the things that's easier said than done for you
It
still?
is. Yeah, it is because again, I'm in a position to where like my stuff is very visible.
Mm-hmm.
So if I roll something out or hey, we're going to try this. We just did this within my firm. And
Mm.
so we just rolled out a new assessment for our projects on how they assess their project health. I mean,
Okay.
so it's like very detailed, but it's also tied back into, how the project's doing overall with budget, schedule, quality, things like that. So very important. And like took us a while, got the wording right, looked at who all the stakeholders are, things like that. So it took us a while to get it the way that I think, okay, let's roll this out, got feedback, everything else. Rolled it out and I'm like, got that box check. Like was able to get that and pushed out to the company.
Mm-hmm.
Within a week, I had someone reach out to me and go, hey, Jennifer, like this is great, but how does this apply to our division offices and departments? And I was like, well,
Mm.
holy crap. Like it doesn't. And that was like step 2, but let me work on this. By the end of the day, I had the matrix ready for departments and divisions. I'd sent it out to 10, 15 people cross section. And the feedback the next day was, Jennifer, this is great. I wouldn't change anything. Then it got sent to the developer. And right now it's getting rolled into the app so that going into next month, everything's covered. But that would have never happened if I didn't roll out the project health one. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
little things like that. I wanted it to be great and perfect, and it still didn't check all the boxes.
But also, you're able to do that if we can connect the dots for
Okay,
people,
do it, do it.
because you have a body of work to speak on. You have a wealth of knowledge to speak on to at least create the first iteration of something. And so
Yes.
if you are so hesitant to put something out, maybe that's a sign of like, are we maybe stretching a little outside of our zone of genius, which is different than stretching your comfort zone.
I
Definitely
like
stretch your
that.
comfort zone, but are we maybe going too far out of our zone of genius and we need to
Mhm.
come back, or we need to get more feedback from people before we can even do a first draft of something? Not that it has to be perfect, right?
Yeah,
Just go do it.
right.
But if we can't just go do it, that's maybe a warning flag, I would
Yeah.
argue.
Or
Yeah.
like who do you know that does have that zone of genius?
Mm-hmm.
And what could you do to engage with them and to ask questions and to get some information? Because it's a really good litmus test. Early on, I'm like, oh, I got some things figured out. I don't know crap. As soon as I started asking people that I knew had some stuff figured out and the
Mm,
way that we were engaging, and then there were other things that I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about this. And as I started talking to them, I realized like, hey, I'm hanging in this conversation just as much as they are. Like, so it was a good like litmus test for me on like, okay, that I need to dig into and learn more about. And hey, I'm in a place now where I can confidently talk about this, and I'm
mhm.
not trying to. I'm not behind the curtains moving levers that no one knows about.
We've got the sneaky magic sometimes, but sometimes it just we don't got room for that, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, we are right at time. But thank you so much, Miss Jennifer,
Thank
for joining
you.
us, for sharing your superpowers with us today. I hope our audience got a lot out of this. I know I did. I'm always learning, and I'm so honored to be able to learn from you today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And again, I'm just so glad we collided. And now I doubt this is the last time we're going to talk.
Fingers crossed. All right.